The question is, if friendly AI is a save the world level issue, then shouldn't we win by any means necessary? Triggered in particular by my statement that if I possessed a sort of fully general mind hack, I wouldn't use it to get people to donate to the Singularity Institute. Ethics are not pure personal disadvantages that you take on for others' benefit. Ethics are not just penalties to the current problem you're working on that have sort of side benefits for other things. When I first started working on the singularity problem, I was making sort of non-reductionist type mistakes about friendly AI, even though I thought of myself as a rationalist at the time. And so I didn't quite realize that friendly AI was going to be a problem, and I wanted to sort of go all out on just developing any sort of AI quickly as possible. And actually, even later on, once I realized that friendly AI was an issue, the sort of sneers that I now get about not writing code or being a Luddite were correctly anticipated by my past self, with the result that my past self sort of kept on advocating the rush ahead and write code strategy rather than face the sneers, instead of just going back and replanning everything from scratch once my past self realized that friendly AI was going to be an issue, on which basis all the plans had been made before then. So if I'd lied to get people to do what I had wanted them to do at that point, to just get AI done, to rush ahead and write code, even with rather than doing theory, with being honest as I actually was, I could just come back and say, okay, here's what I said, I'm honestly mistaken. Here's the new information that I encountered that caused me to change my mind. Here's the new strategy that we need to use after taking this new information into account. If you lie, there's not necessarily any equally easy way to retract your lies. Trying to figure it out. Something like, what lie would so, for example, one sort of lie that I used to hear advocated back in the old days was by other people working on AI projects, and it was something along the lines of, AI is going to be safe and harmless and will inevitably cure cancer, but, not really take over the world or anything. And if you tell that lie in order to get people to work on your AI project, then it's going to be a bit more difficult to explain to them why you suddenly have to back off and do math and work on friendly AI. Now, if I were an expert liar, I'd probably be able to figure out some sort of way to reconfigure those lies as well. I mean, I don't really know what an expert liar can accomplish by way of lying, because I don't have enough practice. So I guess in that sense, it's not all that a defensive ethics, because I haven't really tried it both ways. But it does seem to me, looking over my history, that my ethics have played a pretty large role in protecting me from myself. And another example is that the whole reason I originally pursued the thought of friendly AI long enough to realize it was important was not so much out of a personal desire as out of a sense that this was something I owed to the other people who were funding the project, Brian Atkins in particular back then, and that if there's a possibility from their perspective that you can do better by friendly AI, or that a fully honest account would cause them to go off and fund someone who's more concerned about friendly AI, then I owed it to them to make sure that they didn't suffer by helping me. And so it was a sense of ethical responsibility to others at that time which caused me to focus in on this, sort of small discordant note, this, this minor possibility that doesn't really look all that important, and follow it long enough to get somewhere. So maybe there are people who could defend the Earth by any means necessary and recruit other people to defend the Earth by any means necessary, and nonetheless have that all end well and happily, smiling ever after, rather than, bursting to flames and, the getting arrested for murder and robbing banks and being international outlaws and or more likely just arrested and attracting the wrong sort of people who are willing to go along with this, and people being corrupted by power and deciding that no, the world would really be a better place with them in charge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think if you sort of survey the Everett branches, the many worlds, and look at the ones with successful singularities, look at the conditional probability of successful singularities, my guess is that the worlds that start out with programming teams who are trying to play it ethical versus the worlds that start out with programming teams that figure, well, no, this is a planetary class problem, we should throw away all our ethics and do whatever's necessary to get it done, that the former world have a higher proportion of happy outcomes. I could be mistaken, but if it does take a sort of master ruthless type person to do it optimally, then I'm not that person, and that is not my comparative advantage. And I'm not really all that willing to work with them either, so I suppose if there was any way you could end up with two friendly AI projects, then I suppose the possibility of there actually being sort of completely ruthless programmers and so on versus ethical programmers, they might both have good intentions and still separate into two groups that refuse to work with one another. But I am sort of skeptical about these alleged completely ruthless altruists. Has there ever in history been a completely ruthless altruist with that turning out well? And I'm trying to think of who Yudkowsky, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, the guy who blew up a civilian ferry in order to sink the deuterium that the Nazis needed for their nuclear weapons program. You'd never see that in a Hollywood movie. So, he killed civilians and did it to end the Nazi nuclear weapons program. So that's about the best historical example I can think of a ruthless altruist, and it turns out well. And I'm not really sure that's quite enough to persuade me to give up my ethics.